You're listening to Ricky and Jimmy on Relationships, the show where we uncover the thoughts and behaviors that are sabotaging your relationship and what you can do about it. Jimmy and I are passionate about sharing the ways that imperfect partners like you and I can shift unhealthy relational dynamics and create closeness. So welcome. Drop your defenses and open your heart, eyes, and ears. Let's learn how to be the best partner we can be together. Okay, we're back. This is Ricky and Jimmy on Relationships. Today, you guys, we have Trevor Hanson, licensed marriage and family therapist, and me and Jimmy's personal friend. So I think we're super, super excited to have him on. Today, we're going to be talking a lot about attachment, which I know you guys love, and a little or a lot about inner child healing, which is also a topic that Trevor's super excited about. I think Jimmy and I are a little more new to it, so we'll have lots of great questions for him.
I'm so thrilled, honestly, just to hang out with you guys. We see each other nearly every week, and to get a bonus call this week, I'm like, I love this. This is so exciting.
And so for our longtime listeners and critics, this episode might be a little more interrupty than normal. So strap in, because we are three friends who talk casually on a regular basis. So this will probably be less formal and more like a hangout that you guys are kind of sitting in the circle for.
And we're in 3 different time zones. Mm-hmm. Not that should matter, but Trevor's actually in Hawaii, so that's really interesting.
Yep. Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm in Alaska and Jimmy's in Florida. We could not be farther apart, the 3 of us, and still be in the United States.
Very true.
Whoa.
Yeah. So if I can give you a praise right off the bat, I don't want to give you, I don't want to give you a big head or anything, but
I want one.
Okay, good. But yeah, we all love Trevor's stuff. If you're not following him on Instagram, The Art of Healing by Trevor, his stuff is amazing. And I don't know. I've learned a lot from you, so I'm grateful to be your friend, and also your student.
Yeah. On that note, I had the privilege to go through Trevor. I went through your course, and I, even as someone who has 100 books on relationship and communication and attachment under my belt, I got new stuff out of your course, which was amazing. I don't normally bump into new stuff. So that was an amazing experience. And it was the inner child stuff. I hadn't really come across it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that I've just been really, really passionate about, this idea that like our attachment styles are formed in childhood, and we have these experiences when we're just little itty bitty human beings, and they leave us with this programming that tells us to be afraid when people pull away, or to believe that we're not good enough, and all this programming that just is faulty, honestly. Like, it's just not honoring the truth or the reality. Like, we're lovable, amazing human beings. And then, and so in my approach, I was like, man, like what an amazing opportunity for us, like as compassionate people who can easily feel love and compassion for a child. Why don't we access the childlike part of ourselves that is wounded, that needs compassion? And in so doing, through that process, we wind up just like feeling so much like deeper healing. Because I was noticing for a long time, even as a therapist, that I would fall into the trap of helping my clients like intellectualize their problems, where it was like so much like, oh, this is your history and these are your patterns and here's some tools, and the realizations, they're cool, but there needs to be kind of what I call like a release component, where you're actually going into the heart, the emotional heart of what you've experienced in the past that now creates anxiety, and feeling something different. My little catchphrase, I think it's kind of cute, is information doesn't create transformation. You have to feel something to heal something. And so that's what the inner child stuff is all about. It's unlocking emotional healing rather than just like intellectualizing your issue.
Yeah, I love how you put that. I can remember before your course, I would think of myself as a child and my history in a very intellectual way. Well, here's what happened and here's what it meant to me. And it was all just very much words on paper and not emotions. And it is hard to address that stuff when it's just facts and figures and not emotions, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And it's hard because that like logical brain isn't where the actual like trauma is held, right? That's the front part of our brain where all of our reason and our logic and like our wisdom, it sits when we're online emotion or online, like intellectually and rationally, like that part of our brain. But all of the wounding lives elsewhere in our base brain. So quite literally, physically, it exists in a different place. And if we don't access the part of our brain where the wounding lives, then we're most likely not going to be very successful in healing it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I wanted to share too that to prepare for this episode, Trevor, I listened to your solo cast episode of your podcast, which I also love. And I thought it would be neat to share with everybody too, that listening to the way that you tell the story of little you, I thought that might be a good way for people to start to access little them, you know? Like sometimes people are like, my childhood was fine. I don't really know what I went through, you know, but if they were to sit down and really tell the story of it, even if it's just to themselves, you really start to pick up pieces where I heard you talk about things where I was just like, oh, I just want to give little Trevor a hug. You know, I can hear the pieces that he probably would need to look closer at to get some of that healing. And anyway, I just want to encourage some people whose childhood may feel very far away and fuzzy or ambiguous, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and if you don't mind, maybe I'll set up kind of personal journey on like what that looked like, because for me, I was definitely in the camp of like anxious attachment, and it's so funny. Like I've wrestled with all these different definitions of anxious attachment and how to explain it, and then I realized it's in the name itself. You anxiously attach yourself to people, usually, who you think can fill this void of emotional needs that you have. You cling on to something outside of you. And in a way, we can be anxiously attached to a lot of things, but primarily we talk about it in relationships, and that's where it's most disruptive, right? Expecting somebody else to soothe your soul, soothe your anxieties. And it usually comes from there's kind of a gap. There was some sort of emotional need that you had growing up that wasn't quite filled. And it doesn't mean you have abusive parents or anything like that. It could literally be mom was really anxious, didn't give me a lot of eye contact, kind of tried to avoid me when I cried because it was so anxiety provoking for her. And I grew up with this underlying sense of panic that people aren't going to be there for me. And you may not even have a conscious memory of it. And so it can be so subtle, right? And so I was in dating when I was really seeing it like play out. And I was the guy who like, man, like I immediately first date, I'm like imagining like being in a relationship with this girl, or like being so committed that I would like turn off all other possibilities of dates. And I would just like hone in as if like she was going to be the path to my happiness, rescue me out of my fears of being alone forever. And it would just put a lot of pressure on these dates. And I would ask for commitment too soon. And it would obviously fall apart because that's a lot, right? She's essentially not knowing, bearing the weight of my unmet needs from childhood. Oh, dang. Like,
no pressure.
No pressure. Like, hey, here's a beautiful gift. First day. I hope you love it. And so I got sucked into that. And I was like, why is this not working? Like, I want to find somebody. I think I'm a decent guy. Like, I'm nice to people. I'm like decently like attractive. I can do good things. I have a good job. Like the resume was there. And so there's a part of me that kind of intellectually felt like I was good enough, but emotionally there was a part of me that didn't really believe it. And that was the part that was expressed in anxiety and fear and all of that. And that's kind of like what led me to first explore different avenues of healing, including accessing the inner child and working through that with little Trevor. And I can talk more specifically about what that looks like, but that's kind of, well, I should say it got even worse. So it got to the point where I was in a committed relationship. We were like engaged to be married, and I was so fearful that I couldn't find anybody else, that I wasn't enough, that I held on to that relationship. And it was so bad, so toxic. It had me believing I already didn't necessarily believe that I was quite good enough, but it had me believing really bad things about myself. Like I'm a bad guy. I was isolating from friends. I wasn't doing all sorts of things that I used to love to do because her own fears and insecurities had a lot of hypervigilance on me. Hey, it was, we go in public and she was afraid that I was looking at women. I would just literally look at the floor when we were like a grocery store because I was so terrified to look around. And so I stayed and I stayed and I stayed because of the anxious attachment. And the fear. I broke my jaw around the same time. I got laid off from my corporate job at Tesla, and I kind of had no friends because I had isolated them all. I pushed them away as I got sucked into trying to just cling on for dear life to what I felt like was the life raft out of the storm of my single days of being alone, and it was my one and only shot. Man. Yeah. And that's really where the kind of the rock bottom hit in order to turn around and go, where do I find something to change this? Like there's got to be something different here.
Yeah, I think Jimmy and I can both relate to a rock bottom being the place that brought us into this work and figuring out who we are and what our contribution to all these bad things that happen to us are,
Yeah. One of my favorite episodes is Ricky and I just talking about how our anxious attachment just ruined so many of our
yeah, that's my favorite episode as well. It was a real train wreck, but it was kind of fun. I'm glad we can laugh about that stuff in retrospect, but it was pretty painful when it was going down.
Yeah.
We can definitely relate to what you're saying. I want to throw an aside in here too for our audience. The other day I came across a post online where a woman was just so angry at her parents for bestowing the anxious attachment on her. And something stuck out to me in your solo cast, Trevor, that you had a really supportive, pretty darn great family, it sounds like. Yep. So I'd like to throw out too, for anybody who might be feeling some of that pain, since we're going to be talking about inner child stuff, that not all of this is coming from our parents. We have a natural tendency toward a certain attachment style. So there's that too. There's a little bit of nature along with the nurture, or else all siblings would have the exact same attachment style, and they don't. So I just want to throw that out there.
It really is like attachment theory is a theory in trauma, really. It's that we have experiences that create some sort of hypervigilance and self-protective responses. And that can happen later in life too, right? You can develop the same exact type of symptoms, I guess you could say. It's a very clinical way of saying it, but same kind of symptoms as a classic anxious attachment from a really horrible divorce or from bullying as a kid, or from just for me, a big influencing factor was I was just really, really small growing up until later in life, I hit a growth spurt, and my smallness, and as well as just different activities that my family participated in growing up. We climbed, we skateboarded, we mountain biked. We didn't do any of the ball sports, like the football and anything else. And so feeling pretty isolated there, feeling small. I think those factors really influenced my anxiously attached kind of presentation later in life. And it wasn't heavy on how I grew up. I really don't believe. And so the inner child doesn't have to be the 4-year-old self. It might be the 15, 16-year-old self. There's a lot of different versions of our past self that probably needs some help, needs some love and some healing.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. As a therapist, do you feel like, because I would imagine this to be true, this is kind of what I've experienced, but I don't know if this is true for everybody, but people that are kind of, I don't know, I don't want to call them hard, but just hardened, we've all kind of gone through seasons of our life where we're just hardened and we don't really show a lot of emotion or whatever. But I feel like inner child stuff, while it sounds a little out there, but when you really dig into it with a client, do you feel like that's kind of what breaks them down? When they think about their past self, because I would have probably said my childhood wasn't that bad, even though my dad, even though I lived with my mom and I would visit my dad every other weekend, And I mean, as you can imagine, like that places some obvious strain on a child, even though we made the best out of that situation. But
Right.
the point is like, I would have said like, oh, my childhood was, I saw my dad. Like, it's not like he was gone. Like, he loved me. I knew he loved me. I saw him, yada, yada. But it's amazing when you really start to think about that inner child. When you actually, I guess the point that I'm trying to make is like, when a client or anyone really has to like picture themselves as a child and like talk to that child, I would assume that really breaks a lot of people. Like, that just breaks them down, and it like opens their eyes to like, oh my gosh, like, I don't think I'm enough. I don't think I have this like subconscious belief that I'm not enough and I'm too needy. But if you looked at your 5-year-old self, you would never call that child too much, too needy, too sensitive. Like, you would never do that to that child. And so I don't know. My question is like, do you see a lot of people that are just like, that's their point where they're just like, oh my gosh, like,
Yeah. I think so. Part of the work that we do. So I've got this club / like program that you guys know about. It's called the Secure Self Club. And in the process, we start with a little bit of the intellectual approach to it, where we are just kind of taking a bit of an audit of childhood in a way that makes us realize, wow, there's maybe some more there. One of the things that I found really helpful is we shorten that process significantly by just giving everybody like a menu. It's like a pretty long list of like influencing factors is what we call them. Like, hey, these are some of the things that could have made you feel anxiously attached in your life. Like, do any of these sound familiar? And a lot of people will go through that and they're like, oh my gosh, there was like 3 or 4 there that I never even thought of. Like, that makes so much sense. Like, for example, you could have been like the golden child, and you then felt like everybody called you that. And so you feel this anxiety to keep it up. And in that anxiety, you feel like, wow, this is how I earn love. This is how I'm good enough. Nobody did anything wrong to you. They're praising you. Oh, you're the best. You're the golden child. You're amazing, right? Yeah. And no one would even think of that. But then you picture that little kid who is really fighting to make sure everything is good, everybody is happy, and that they're the one who keeps the peace and is the golden child. And you can feel some compassion for him, like, or her, or whoever we're talking to, right? It's like, wow, I love you. And so I think it's a combination of 2 things. One, we can accelerate the process just by looking at a pretty exhaustive list of, this might be why I feel this way. You have that aha moment, and then you access that moment, especially through visualization. Like, if you have a photo of yourself, oh man, that puts it on steroids. That like really accelerates things. But I guess I'm curious to ask you guys a question back, because I think both of you have done some of this work through some of my resources. What was it like for you to like visualize the younger self for maybe the first time, right? Because before it was intellectualized, like Ricky, you were saying, it's intellectualized little Ricky. I know she existed. I know what she went through. But then all of a sudden the visual of being like, wow, what if I went into her bedroom right now? Like, if I went and found her in the moment when she needed my help, like, what was that like to do that?
I guess I'll start. Is that okay, Jimmy?
Of course.
Your guided meditation with the door. Gosh, Trevor, that's like my Roman Empire. That's what I think about like more often than I'd like to admit. Because I'd always really just intellectualized my childhood big time, because it's painful looking at the stuff that hurts, But when I invited an actual visualization of my inner child to come hang out with adult me, it was like a movie I'd never seen before, that was like full of so many revelations. And it really gave me access to feelings that I think I had buried. It's like it was like, I don't know. It was otherworldly, almost, sitting there with a younger version of myself and inviting her to just like, hey, what's on your mind? And I knew, even the stuff that I'd been burying, I knew what was on her mind. And it was such a palpable way to be able to access that. It was powerful stuff.
Wow. I'm curious, what did you feel for her? That's a kind of an interesting question, but I guess oftentimes we feel some compassion.
Yeah. Well, I was a very bookish, like weirdly adult child. I wasn't silly. I sat by myself and I read a lot. And I was also very, very fearful. I've struggled with a lot of anxiety my entire life. That's kind of my makeup. It's kind of who I am. And so being able to be the very calm and supportive adult that she would have needed in that moment was, it was transformative. I mean, I hate to sound like, I don't want to sound like I'm overselling it, but it really was a very big deal. No adults in my life knew how to handle my anxiety. So that little girl didn't have any of that support. And also none of the adults in my life knew about my loneliness either. But the me in that room with her totally knew. So I knew exactly what to say. I knew what she needed to hear and feel. And it was awesome. It was awesome.
Wow.
Now it's like hard to admit this stuff. Jimmy, you go next.
Oh my gosh. It's so hard to, I mean, that's one of the things that's always fascinated me about like inner child stuff is just that, I don't know, man. It just hits a different level. Like it just hits a spot. Like I'll tell you a quick story because it was weirdly fascinating. And Trevor, either of you can just like pick at my story and I'll try not to cry. But I had already done just on my own, just like trying to talk to my inner child and stuff like that. And I remember the first time I did it. So I closed my eyes and I was just like picturing myself as a child, like picturing myself walking up to me as a child, as like a 6-year-old. I mean, I didn't pick 6-year-old. I was just like walk up to me as a child. And that's how old I was, like 6, 7, 8, maybe. And this was the craziest thing. I haven't said this anywhere. Like I haven't made any videos about this or anything. Where I pictured myself was my dad's house, which, like I said, I saw him every other weekend. But I pictured myself outside of his house and I was completely alone, which is strange. So the way I started to extrapolate that was like, okay, that's weird that I would picture myself at my dad's house just randomly. Like that's just where I am. And then I was like, I think that holds like a really big clue to like where a lot of my people pleasing and a lot of my, just those fears of just like not being good enough. And I was talking to Ricky about this on the last episode of just like a little bit about my story and stuff like that. And so I think that was I don't think that was an accident that I pictured myself at my dad's house, but I was alone. I was like on the sidewalk. I was outside of the house. Now that's interesting because my dad's house was a place that was full of life. I have 3 half siblings. So whenever I was over at my dad's house, I'm playing with my half siblings. I'm playing catch with my dad. Like we were very active. There was no, it's not like I ever felt ostracized while I was there, but it's very interesting that my inner child would be outside of the house alone on the sidewalk, which is somewhere where I would have never been. There would be no reason for me. Anyways. So, I think that was just like a fascinating, like, oh my gosh, like how much of the time did I just feel alone, and feel like I needed to perform when I was there, because if I don't perform, like maybe I might not be back here. Like I might not come back here. So it's a fascinating. So yeah, I mean, I just tried to have that conversation with little me, like just telling him that he doesn't need to be like, you don't have to earn your love. Like, like you deserve to feel accepted here, like it was wild. It's wild,
man. What was it? It's funny as you were starting to talk about, you're like, pick my story and I might cry, but I'm curious, like speaking of cry or emotion, what did you experience emotionally going through that? Because even hearing it, I feel emotion. I'm like, oh man, like little Jimmy feeling like he has to be, performing, doing the song and dance in order to make sure that he's got his place there. And I'm like, oh, I want to go find him and like scoop him up and love him. And I feel that, but you've obviously got to feel so much more. What was it like for you?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm heartbreaking for one. I mean, it's just, it was just, I just felt so bad for him because he didn't know. He doesn't know. Like, he doesn't know anything. He's just trying to live his life. And that's why you feel so much compassion for that younger version of you, because you know that they're just reacting. They're just living. They're not doing any of this consciously. They're not trying to earn love. And yet when you look at it in hindsight, you can see that they're terrified that they're not going to be accepted if they don't do X, Y, and Z. So, I mean, there was a lot of compassion, and there was a lot of sadness. It was just a lot of sadness.
Yeah. And
Jimmy,
it's, go ahead.
Sorry, Trevor.
Vicky. No,
Jimmy,
go
I
ahead.
love what you said about it is so crazy that visualization kind of drops you in the exact moment that you need it to, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think it's any accident at all that you were the age you were and the location you were. And in my own visualization, I would say I was probably about 12 or 13, you know, that really awful time when puberty's hitting you really hard.
Yeah.
And I was in my room on the floor, you know, on the like knees up to my chest. And I can very clearly hear my parents fighting downstairs, and it's just wrecking me. And I'm like, and I just, like, little me wanted to be able to stop that fight so bad, but she couldn't. She was a little kid, you know? And so to be able to find that moment and that age where that stuff hit me really hard, and be able to tell her, hey, like, they don't know any better, you know, like, they don't know how to solve their fights. They would if they could. Also, there's nothing that you could have done or said better to prevent this. You didn't start this, you know. Those are the words that I needed to hear. And man, I don't know where I was going with any of that. I just wanted to say, like, that I do think this visualization drops you exactly into the spot that you need to be comforted.
Yeah. As you were saying that, there's a couple of ways that we'll even get there, where sometimes we'll just start with an emotion. If somebody's like, I have no memory, I don't even know where to go. I'm like, okay, let's maybe vividly imagine a moment recently that was triggering for you. And they're like, okay. And it's just hard work, right? We're like asking people to do really difficult things. And then we'll speak to the emotion. Like, do you feel it? Where do you notice it? And they're like, it's in my chest. It's here. It feels heavy. You know, they're describing the feeling, and it feels a little kooky and a little silly. But sometimes I'll say, like, okay, why don't you just let that emotion know that you see it, that you're there. And if you're leaning in, this is powerful. If you get too hung up on the idea, like, well, I'm talking to myself, this is weird, then it doesn't work quite as well. And so they'll ask, you know, or they'll approach the emotion saying, hey, I'm here. I can see you. I know why you feel the way you do. A little bit of validation just towards, like, the idea of an emotion that lives in the body. And then I'll even ask that emotion how old it might be. Like, if it's a younger version of you, how old are you? And they'll come up with an answer oftentimes. And it's wild. It's almost as if there's like another little entity that's living inside of you. But it's quite literally just a part of your nervous system that's wired up. And it's interesting because as I started to do this work, I realized there's this metaphorical inner child that we like visualize and we kind of create for the purpose of us being able to access these feelings, but also physically it exists within your nervous system. You quite literally have an inner child. There are neurons in your brain that were wired together at that time in your life that are still together. And it's like, whoa, that actually lives in me. And so that's beautiful. I think one other tiny little thought that I had is, as Jimmy, you were saying, it brings up so much sadness. Somebody might listen to this and be like, whoa, I don't want to do this. That sounds like a lot of sadness. Like, why would I access sadness? But we have to remember that sadness is a good emotion in this context. It's very, very helpful because most of the time you approach the part of you that's anxiously attached, especially if you're aware of it and you know it's causing problems, you most likely approach it with shame. I can't believe I'm this way. I'm the worst. I'm so needy. I'm so clingy. I criticize my partner and I start all the fights. Like, you're just going to come at yourself with such little compassion. But sadness is evidence of real deep compassion. It is the most true evidence. You are not making it up at that point. You know that you're not when you feel grief, when you feel sadness, because you're seeing that part of you through the eyes of compassion and you're fully understanding it now. And so when people come out of that and they're like, whoa, I felt so much grief. I felt so much sadness. Sounds a little weird, but I'm like, okay, good. Like, let's look at what that actually means, because you're accessing it with love. And when you access it with love, that's when you start to heal that part of yourself.
Yeah. At Trevor, I actually felt amazing after that exercise. Like so good. Like I know when I'm talking about it, I sound sad, but being able to address that part of myself and say like literally like that wasn't your fault. What's that wonderful movie with Robin Williams with the Good Will Hunting? You guys know what scene I'm talking about, right? There's a scene in Good Will Hunting where Robin Williams is a therapist and he's telling, oh gosh, is it
Matt Damon?
It's Matt Damon. Yeah. And thank you. And he's
I'll
telling
help you
him,
along this story.
Thank you. You guys know this scene, right? And he's telling him like, I think it's not your fault. I think that's what he said over and over again. But being able to tell myself that, it was just like this weight that I didn't even know I'd been carrying. I could finally set it down. Set it down. Like, oh my gosh, I wasn't the reason that my parents didn't get along. Like it was intellectually, I knew that as an adult, but to make little me feel that was massive. And it really, I felt lighter, you know? Yes, there was sadness with it, but a larger feeling was relief.
Oh my goodness. And this is where I want to bridge the gap between like, okay, doing this, like what impact does it have? And kind of logically put the pieces together for a second for those who are listening to this. So if we go back to my kind of crude definition of the anxious attachment, there's a gap that was left, an emotional gap, and you're trying to fill it by anxiously attaching to other people. And it's like, you filled my cup. You're always putting it out for everybody else to fill. And when you do this visualization, you are accessing, and it sounds like it's kind of like one visualization. Usually it's a series, and we will go in and do multiple rounds with different types of approaches when we're working with, somebody like in the Secure Self Club and things. But when you do that, you are accessing the part of you that is putting that cup out there for everybody else to fill, that part of you that is anxiously attached. And you are the one filling the cup. You're saying, no. Look, bring the cup close. Bring it right inside because I'm here with you. We live in the same body, you and me, little me as an adult, we're all here together. And so I'm going to be now the one to fill your cup. And I tell moms, I say mothers have a superpower to heal an anxious attachment within themselves that they don't realize that they have, because they already know how to nurture and scoop up and take care of a child in distress. They know how to do it. It's like on repeat. Dads are pretty dang good at it too, but mom's got
Trevor,
something special, right?
I was going to say, Jimmy is an amazing parent, and I think he also can access that superpower too. Yeah.
Yes, most definitely. I guess maybe I default to moms because I tend to get more moms in my programs than dads.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah. And so it's like you have the ability to go in there and find the younger you, fill up that cup, give them that need, provide the internal safety. And so that you now no longer have the need for everybody else to fill it up, right? That anxiety, that pursuing, that cling, it may sometimes still happen. It may, right? But those instances of trigger, they're going to be way less frequent, way less intense, and they're going to last a shorter period of time, and some may have them completely disappear. It's more rare than common to have that happen, but I will say that it's a tangible thing, and it's not just this metaphorical idea. It's quite real.
Yeah. Do you want to hear what I did with that visualization? Because you bring that stuff into your real adult life for sure. It helped me to realize why I was so deeply uncomfortable with the people that I loved being angry, right? I mean, because you can hear that angry fight happening downstairs in my visualization. So I had such a hard time letting my husband, Chris, be angry. So I thought if I just do everything perfectly all around the house and I'm the perfect partner, he'll never be angry and everything will be fine and I'll be safe. And I was not allowing my spouse to have an emotion. Like there was an emotion that was just like not allowed. Anger. No, we don't do that here. And he needed that. Anger is also an important emotion. It's not a pass to be cruel or to say awful things, but when he's angry, that means that something's not working for him and he needs to be able to express it. And so, when little me realized people can be angry and that doesn't mean I'm a bad person that's done something wrong, I could literally sit with Chris's anger and hear him say things that he needed to say, hey, this thing that's happening is not working for me, that kind of impassioned, angry speech that he needs to give. And I could sit calmly and go, man, I'm really glad you told me that, instead of automatically getting defensive and trying to tell him why I haven't failed him,
Oh, that's so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what a beautiful application. That's so
great.
clear. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Both of you can feel free to chime in on this, because this is something that I struggle with anxious attachment. So would you say that it's accurate? I don't know if it's the right analogy, so let me just externally process and you work me through it. But would you say there's like 2 cups that we need to fill in our relational dynamic, like especially when we're with a partner? There's an us cup where we don't really want to look to others to externally validate our worth and value. Like that needs to first come from us, even though of course we would all agree that when we love someone, it really hurts when they don't, then they disrespect us, or when they it's not like we're saying that we need to take on everything, like as in I'm filling my own cup, therefore I don't care what happens around me, then none of this is going to affect me because I'm filling my own cup. Like I would assume that that's not what we mean. But would it be safe to say that there's almost like 2 cups where it's like there's certain things that we need to fill ourselves? It's certain things that we need to just like I said, we shouldn't be looking for our value and worth externally. However, there's also a relational needs cup that when we start to heal our anxious attachment, we get better at identifying our true needs and values and actually being able to vulnerably and respectfully express our feelings, which is extremely difficult, even for someone who's anxiously attached and considers themselves emotionally present. Sometimes those are the same people that they just honestly have no idea how to express things vulnerably and respectfully because, well, they haven't really had to. If they're dating a lot of emotionally unavailable or immature partners, they don't usually have to express things vulnerably, but that's a separate story. My point is that like healing your insecure attachment helps you to meet both buckets, because you want to learn how to meet the relational needs bucket just by identifying, well, what do I even need for me to feel fulfilled and valued in a relationship, which is kind of different than what do I need to fill my own cup.
100%. 100%. This immediately, I was almost going to like pull it up, but I stopped myself. But there is this post that one of the members of our community posted recently that reminded me so much of what you said. And I asked her if I could use her words because they were so powerful. And that's why I wanted to pull it up. But she was talking about how she's like, I'm realizing that I've been asking my husband to fill up a cup that wasn't his to fill. And it's a cup that has a hole in it. And he's been pouring into it. And no matter what, he's unable to fill it. And talking about how she's now realizing that there's another cup. The first cup was maybe the cup that has a hole in it, was maybe the cup that mom and dad were originally in charge of filling. And now she's realizing that as an adult, that responsibility, whether it's fair or not, has transferred to her. And so the goal was, and I'm butchering the words, it was like poetic. It was like poetry. She posted it and I was like, I'm crying reading this, like in the community. And she said like, I am now the one to fill the hole and to fill the cup and give him the other cup. And I love that visualization, because as you hand your partner a new cup that says like, yes, this is our cup to fill together. I do have needs, right? We made an agreement. We're here to support each other, build a family, whatever we're doing in life. And so there is some responsibility there, but like it can be filled, by the way. Like it's not an ever moving target, because the ever moving target makes the other person feel like they're not good enough, right? I'm pouring into an empty cup and it's never enough for you. Oh my goodness. And that narrative of it's never enough for you can even be triggering for the anxiously attached. Like, oh, well, you're just saying that I'm so horrible. I'm so broken. Like I'm this wicked witch of the West that you can never be satisfied. And it just continues the cycle. And so, yes, 100%, Jimmy, I believe that there are two cups. There's probably more than two, but definitely two, where the one, it, like I said, is not fair. And that's maybe part of the hurdle to overcome in this work. Some people have that anger moment where they're like, this happened to me. Why am I the one to do this? And that's where I lean in with a lot of empathy. And I say, I know it's definitely not fair. And I am so sorry. And I grieve that you have this cup now that is empty, half full, whatever it is, that might have holes in it, and that it is now your responsibility to patch the holes that you did not create. But what other choice do we have, right? I care about you. This is almost like me speaking to my client. I say, like, I care about you enough to not let you fall into the narrative of this isn't my responsibility. Because if you do, then you will never heal and never become whole. And then on the other side, it's once you have that cup full, you start to have better clarity on what you can expect in a relationship. It becomes much more clear. The anxiously attached ask for too much and not enough all at the same time, right? In some moments, the asking for not enough is the people pleasing, overextending, doing everything you can to try to keep them happy and keep them close. And the asking for too much is, when your anxiety flares up to the point where you're expecting them to soothe you, they don't even understand what's going on or how to be successful there. And they probably don't have the remedy because, again, them soothing you in that moment is pouring into the cup with a hole. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful idea that says there's two cups. So 100% agree.
Yeah. I actually, in my newest book, I talk about, I don't use the word cups, but 3 spheres, right? There's the me, there's the we, and there's the you. And it was very hard in anxious attachment to not try to take all responsibility and control of the you. That was my partner's anger. That was my partner's disinterest, or right. I was trying to take control of the you cup and control everything that he was doing and thinking, when really I was completely ignoring the me cup, thinking that was his responsibility because I was so focused on the you cup. Why wouldn't he be focused on mine? Right. And there was no room for we because I was just hyper focused on the you. He, as an avoidant attacher, was also focused on his own cup because that's where their safety lies, And it's really been quite the task for both him and I to take control of our me cups, which is the big emotions that we have to kind of settle down before we come into difficult discussions. And then to also take 50% or more control of the we cup, which is this new cup that magically popped into existence when we decided to be together and agreed upon the kind of relationship that we wanted.
I love that. If I could add real quick to that, because I feel like, Ricky, you've influenced me in just talking to you over the years that we've been doing this, surprisingly.
Yeah.
But I just feel like you do such a good job at like blending self-regulation and co-regulation. Like when we're talking about those cups and filling them ourselves, like there's an element of co-regulation that's so important. But let's start with self-regulation. Like when I have those big feelings, are you my go-to? Like, you need to, like Trevor was saying, like the self-soothing or like soothing, like you're my fix. Like I need you to soothe here. That's not to say that co-regulation isn't massively important in a relationship, as if we're so hyper independent that I'm having a big feeling, I'm upset about something, so I'm just going to go isolate. And I'll come back when I'm fine. It's like, and we're not going to talk about it. It's like, it's just because it's all up to me. But I had to find the blend of both, because as an anxious attacher, I wasn't good at self-regulation. I also wasn't great at co-regulation because I was too scared to actually be vulnerable and actually I didn't do the appropriate work of self-regulating to know what I'm actually upset about, what I'm actually needing in this situation, and then appropriately communicate that. And so if I can't do those things, then I'm always frustrated. I'm always frustrated at them. I'm always looking for them to do something for me that they don't even know what to do. And I don't even really know fully what they want from them. I just know I need something else more from you. And so, like just working through that healing process really helped me to there's both of those are extremely important to focus on.
Absolutely. Yep. I don't, never mind. Whatever I was going to say, this is also emotional.
You do a really good job.
Thank you. That's,
you're my inspiration for that.
I really appreciate that, Jimmy. I don't want anybody listening to this who might be struggling with anxious attachment to think that any of this means that we are striving for hyper independence. I'm just going to take care of me, because that's not what relationships are about. But they're also not about some savior that means that you aren't responsible for your own stuff anymore. It's the truth is somewhere in the middle of those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
If I could ask another question, Trevor, do you feel like how important, because for me, I started the healing process after I was already married. So I didn't have the opportunity to do what I'm talking about right now. But if I was talking with someone that really struggles with anxious attachment, I feel like it would be a major win for them to get to the point where they could get into a relationship where they actually really wanted it to work. Like, I really want this relationship to work. But then as you start talking with them and as the weeks go on, or whatever the case may be, and they start to see that the person that I'm with just isn't consistent, and their words don't really match their actions, and whatever the case may be, that person can actually exit the relationship and feel like, you know what, even though this is really hard, I wanted this relationship to work so bad. Like, I still want this relationship to work, but I can see that they're not willing to put in the work. And instead of just taking on their emotional labor for them, or trying to fix this, or whatever the case may be, I'm going to step away because I know that I'll be okay at the end of this. Do you feel like that's I never got to put that into practice, but I'm assuming that would be a pretty good indicator that this person's moving in the right direction.
Oh yeah. So what I'm hearing is you're saying hey, if you have the ability to say no to something that the part of you wants, but another part of you recognizes isn't good for you, that is a sign of building a secure attachment. Is that definitely. Totally. That's a great example, right? Because there's that, you may still feel the bit of the anxious draw, the desire to stay. And I think all of us are bummed out or hurt or even grieving when something doesn't work out for us. And the securely attached individual isn't immune to that. They better not be, because that means they're an unfeeling robot that doesn't have any ability to be in a connected relationship with somebody. Of course you're going to still grieve. Of course it's still going to be hard. Of course you long for good connection with somebody else. That's something that I think when getting into this work, some people start to have a little bit of a fuzzy line, which is fine. It's hard to know what it actually looks like to be secure when you haven't experienced it. And so in the beginning, the visual of that might look like the hyper independent, unfeeling person, who who's I don't need no man in my life. I'm totally fine. Doesn't affect me. And it's well, that's not actually secure. The security is where you deeply care, you want things to work, and you still feel hurt when it doesn't, but you know that you're okay when it doesn't. And in order to recognize that, as you were describing that, I thought, wow, how important is it to be in touch with that inner child, to understand the kind of we call it the voice of the inner child, when it's speaking fear, right? In that situation, there's a person that's not quite good for you. They're not really showing up for you in the way that you deserve. The voice of the inner child might say, just try harder, give them more. Right. And you're going to recognize it because you're doing your work. You're oh, hi, bud. I know that you're in there. That sounds like a super good solution. I get why you're saying that, but I actually got a plan that might help us a little better. Can I share that with you? And I'm literally talking to myself like this, just with a lot of gentleness and building trust, validating the part of you that wants to stay. And I have an awesome story about that where I kind of learned this in real time watching a dad parent his daughter. But it just shows how important it is to be able to stay connected with that part of you so that when those situations come up, you have clarity on what you should do next.
We kind of can become our own best advocate in security. I have a little mini story too. When I first started dating my husband, I had a moment of secure attachment amidst all the insecurity where I realized, okay, this person's actually not good for me. This is back in our very early days when Chris was not returning my phone calls in a timely manner. He was very distant whenever I tried to talk to him about anything. And I was able to be kind of a rock for myself and say, hey, this person's not evil. They're not bad, but they're probably bad for you. And so you should probably communicate that to him. You know, I didn't slam the phone down or give all his stuff back in a box. You know, I called him up and I said, hey, this thing that we're doing where I'm like reaching out and you're like not getting back to me. I was like, you're a cool guy, but like that doesn't feel good to me. That doesn't really work for me. It's like, doesn't make you bad. Doesn't make me bad. We're just probably not right for each other. And I got to say, that's like one of the sexiest things that I've ever said to him. You guys better believe he was a completely different person after that conversation, because that security to know that I could let somebody go and I'd be okay and he'd be okay. That's very attractive to other people. And I don't mean to use that as like a tactic, but I really felt that way. I was honestly letting him go in that phone call. And he was like, wow, that was like, he's like, you can just do that. You can just decide what's good for yourself. And he was like, wait, we got to do something different because I'm not letting that girl go. That's amazing.
I love that. I wanted to add to that because I was about to say the same thing, like a part of me that where I was proud of myself for at least being more secure. If somebody's out there that's like, well, what's a step that I can take towards security, or how do I know if I'm on that right path? I mean, to piggyback on Ricky's story, just the ability of not getting over, but working through the fear. I didn't bring up my feelings or needs because I was too afraid of like the conflict that it would cause. And just making that decision of like, you know what, I'm going to bring this up in a respectful and vulnerable way. I'm not bringing it up in a critical or passive aggressive way. I'm going to bring this up in a respectful, vulnerable way. I'm going to talk about what I'm feeling, what happened, and what I would need in the future to feel better in this relationship. And I'm going to do that regardless of their reaction. Like, because I'm not going to manage if they shame spiral, if they do that, I'm not going to like backtrack and say how sorry I am for bringing this up. I'm just going to stand on my words. Like, this is what, and it stinks that you have to get so often. I don't know if this is true for everyone, but I bet it's the case for a lot of anxious attachers. You have to get to a place of where things are really low and things are really difficult for you to go, fine, I will figure out how to like change this. And it stinks that you have to get to that place, but it's so important to like take that as a healthy catalyst, not to swing the pendulum in the opposite direction. I'm going to treat everybody like crap. Fine. Right. I won't be the giver. No, it's like, let's just figure out what it looks like to actually advocate for yourself and not take responsibility for their feelings and not over apologize for sharing your feelings and like set healthy boundaries. And just those little things alone, like, man, that tells you a lot about what someone's journey is and like where they're at to be able to do that.
Totally. Yep. Yeah. That's that rock bottom place. That I wasn't at rock bottom when I made that decision, but I was sitting in my sad little divorce apartment and I was like, what's the worst that could happen? I'll be single again. I've already done that. I thought that, you know, like I know I'll be all right. And that was there is something about rock bottom that does make you a little brave, doesn't it?
Trevor, do you find that? Because one of the biggest fears of the anxiously attached or just the people pleaser, whatever to talk about, is just this fear of being abandoned. But even that doesn't really, we say that so often that we don't even really know what that means. Like, who's abandoning me? Like, but it's this subconscious fear that I'm going to be alone and I'm not going to be accepted and stuff like that. Do you feel like people on the other side of healing or in their process, do you feel like when they do experience something like Ricky just said, like, I'm divorced in my apartment alone, like I'm okay. Like, I'm realizing that I'm okay.
Yeah.
Like, the thing that I feared the most
has happened.
I'm okay. I'm working through this. Do you feel like that's like an empowering? Do you see that often?
You know, it can be. I don't know if it's like for everybody, but it happened for me for sure. Like you know, broken jaw, no job, no friends, and I remember telling, and for some reason, this, like, there's my typical day in that season of my life was have nightmares, wake up. I would have nightmares about the relationship. Wake up feeling incredibly heavy, like weirdly heavy, like my physical body felt heavy. And, I was very sleepy all of the time. I think my body's response to emotion is that it just wants to sleep and just like avoid all of it. And so I was very tired, like physically. And I had never had a panic attack before. I got a couple of those under my belt during that time. I never had real thoughts about not really wanting to be here anymore. And I was having those. And I was, just to make some money, it was Utah. It was in the winter. It's like February. It was 12 degrees. I remember one day in particular, it was like 12 degrees and windy out in Saratoga Springs. And I was knocking doors for these politicians who were trying to collect enough signatures to bypass like the electoral process and just get on the ballot so that they could, you know, circumnavigate that whole thing. And so I was out just getting signatures for these politicians to get on the ballot, feeling like I'm going to like cry between every single door, and just remembering like, okay, left foot, right foot. I was just paying attention to the pressure on my feet, and that would just like help ground me. And I would just go to the next door, go to the next door, go to the next door. And at the time, I don't know if it was empowering, but I will say having that story as part of my story, it is very empowering because of what we're talking about. It's like, well, the worst has happened, and guess what? Like, I'm okay. I remember telling this story kind of like I am now to a friend of mine, a roommate at like the kitchen counter. And he goes, "Oh man, you must not be afraid of anything now." And I was like, "What? What do you mean?" He's like, "Yeah, like you hit, like, I guess it's never been that bad for me. Like, that sounds like you're good." And it was funny. He wasn't trying to like teach me anything. He's like the most like burly dude on the planet. His hobbies are literally MMA and like sniper rifle shooting. And he is, he lives in the unfinished basement and like hits a like a boxing bag like every single day, and it just like shakes the entire house. Yeah. And so he's not like the emotional guy who's like, "Oh, let me process this with you," but he's just such he has a lot of depth to him as well. And I was like, wow, what a cool thing to learn. You're right. And I think that's where it clicked for me and it became real. And it's not to say that you have to have that to do this work, but I will say that we have calls with everybody who joins our program. It's like, like 4 months. Our goal is to help you become as secure as we possibly can in that given time. And on those calls, one of the questions that we ask is basically, how big of a problem is this in your life? And I will say that we kind of scale it from like 1 to 10. It's a question that we ask pretty much everybody. 10 is the most important thing in the world. It's the biggest problem. 1, you don't really care about it. It's the thing you keep procrastinating. If they're not an 8 or above, they almost never have the motivation to actually join in the first place, let alone keep going. And we ask that question to see who is motivated because, it's a community. Everyone's pulling together. It's exciting. It's fun when you're doing the work together. It's not all just heavy and horrible. It's like, it lights you up a little when you're in the trenches with other people. And so we ask that question. But I will say, if you're not an 8 or above, like oftentimes, we don't necessarily even extend the invitation to be part of it, or we're like very hesitant, or we kind of slow down. Some people, after talking, they realize like, wow, actually, it is like it is like a 9, it is like a 10. But you kind of have to have, I liken it to addiction. In the world of addiction, they talk about the pain of the problem became greater than the pain of the solution. And so I went for the solution. And there's that tipping point where the pain of the problem does become greater than the pain of the solution. And if when you're in that place, that's usually when people are motivated to fix it. I wish I could like shout from, a mountaintop, be like, hey, everybody who's not at a 9 or a 10 yet, do it now so that you are not forced to do it. Life will force you to do it.
Yeah.
Don't let life force you. Choose to do it before you even get there.
That's what's so hard. Yeah, that's what's so hard. Understanding that like prevention is just as important. Like, don't wait for the problem to be, oh my gosh, well, I would have told myself that, I would have told my different times in my life, like, don't wait for there to be chaos and calamity before you take any steps to fix this.
Yeah.
I actually have a Gottman book set out on the kitchen table right now for Chris and I are doing great. This season that we're in right now is amazing. And I was like, what a perfect time to throw an amazing marriage book at him.
to a guy that's like the worst case scenario.
I know.
I completely understand it, but like to the average guy, like things are going so great. Let's read this marriage book together. They're like,
yeah, he's
no.
not going to love it, but this is the time. This is the time, This is like, I'm going to try to explain to him. And I don't mean like, we do intensives an hour every single night, but like maybe we're going to cover a chapter every now and then because this is when that work is the easiest. And so that'll be nice. The prevention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one is it? Which book is it?
The Seven Principles.
Probably.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. My favorite. Soon to be his favorite.
Yeah, we'll see.
You said he read Stan Tatkin's book, Wired for Love.
Yes, Wired for Love. Yes, that was. And
is that the only one he's read?
Yes, so far. But that one was pretty transformative for him, if I don't say so myself. He also read
Trevor, he just says that so he doesn't have to read any more books.
No, he was quoting it, like, unless he just memorized a quote.
I'm filled up, Ricky. I'm filled up to the brim with information. You don't even understand how transformational that book was for me.
Don't give his secrets away. You're ruining this for him.
She's like, well, I was going to suggest another one, but it sounds like you got a lot out of that book. I mean, he's like, I'm still chewing on it, to be honest with you. I'm still chewing.
Yeah, he's gonna listen to this and be like, Jimmy,
he's coming for you. He knows your number, Jimmy.
I can guarantee you he's not ever gonna listen to this, just as my wife isn't.
Totally.
Funny.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, where are we now? Where do we want to go with this, you guys? What's our next?
Let's tell people where to find Trevor.
Yeah. You can, there's plenty of places that you can find me. On Instagram, you can find me there at The Art of Healing by Trevor. That's usually where most people start. And then I would say I always tell people, for those who are listening to this and thinking like, okay, I want to become secure. I want to do this work. What resources are in my world that I can give you? There's two that I'd point you towards. One, there's a free seminar that I created that talks about the 4 what I call essential elements that you need to include in your healing process if you want to be successful. And I say this coming from being a therapist and having done work and not help people become successful in the past, like actually struggling to help people get there. And the majority of the people that we bring into like our work and our program, they have some things in common. They've been to therapy. They're reading the books. They're listening to the podcasts like this. They're doing all of what they think is the right answers, which are great. They're wonderful, but there's some missing pieces in that process that will make a significant difference. And I'll share the link with you guys so you can include that. But then if you're also like, hey, I would say start there. It's free, right? It's like that's the free option, and I always love free. Start there. Another one is if you want to learn more about the Secure Self Club and what we do, there you can just book a call with a member of our team and kind of apply, and they'll walk you through. Really, the purpose of that call is for us to figure out if you would be a good fit, because we don't necessarily want to bring in anyone and everyone on the standpoint that we want to make sure that the people who come in are going to be successful, and so we kind of walk through a little bit of an assessment process together to figure out like, okay, is this gonna be beneficial? So those I think 3 resources: Instagram, the free seminar, and then if you want, you can just jump on a call with a member of our team. Those are usually the best places to start if you want to be part of my world. And yeah.
Cool.
Can I add something to that? Because I've watched a couple of your free seminars, and I'm not just, like I said, I'm not saying this to give you a big head. They're so good. Like, they're so good. I always walk away with, if I can be honest and tell you a funny story about one of your seminars, is I watched it and then I was like, I love this so much. But I didn't like take notes or anything. And then I went to like rewatch it like a week later and I couldn't find it. And I was like really bummed. I was like, where is this free? I was like, I need to watch this thing again. So they're jam packed. Like, they're jam packed full of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
And Trevor,
that's great.
I've been following your Instagram account for years. You're one of my very favorites. And I spend an embarrassing amount of time on Instagram. And I love your videos. And the art of healing by Trevor, right? If people want to find you on Instagram, your class also, in case nobody knows what a Roman Empire is at this point on the internet, it's like that thing that you think about regularly and you're like, why am I always thinking of this? And your class is one of those things for me. Because like I said, I don't stumble across new things very often. And I stumbled across a lot of new things in your class that made big differences.
I appreciate that. That's so meaningful to hear. You know, for me, it's the most rewarding thing in the world to help help and heal my past version of myself, meaning my inner child, but then to get to work with people who kind of embody maybe some sort of past version of myself, right? They have the same feelings, the same fears, and to watch in real time in like a community setting where I'm not only the one cheering them on, but like we're like weeping together and we're working together and we're celebrating together and we're watching people make huge wins. Like it is the most rewarding thing on the planet. And I love it so much. And it's such a joy to even talk about it and to talk about it with you guys and hear your personal stories. It feels like an extension of that, right? Like hearing you, I'm like, man, I could do this all day. Like it's so deeply rewarding and meaningful for me to do it. So thanks for letting me jump on and chat with you.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Absolutely.
Can't wait to have you back.
Totally.
Oh,
I hope
it.
you listeners got a lot out of this. Trevor, we will have you back. This is so nice. I know if the audience got half out of this, what I did, they will be better people for it. So
it's so awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.